I know that what I've been talking about, a tangible encounter with God, a supernatural encounter with God, that always causes an unbelievable, miraculous, supernatural transformation to take place in the human being when it happens. That some of you may never have experienced that. I get that. I understand that. You're listening to me. But that doesn't mean that it's not real, that it's not true. Just give me a chance. Isn't it worth, if what I'm talking about, and do you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying there's a way to connect with God that we've been missing as Christians, where God actually becomes tangible inside of us, and that the presence of God with all of who He is, that love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness and self-control and righteousness comes inside of us and eradicates all of our broken human condition, so that it is in that moment of time impossible to feel any amount of emotional pain. Do you understand what I'm saying? That if you are overwhelmed with depression or anxiety is just normal for you, what I'm saying is, if you could begin to have this sort of intimacy with God, it will eradicate and end instantaneously. And not in a process, not something you have to work with. It will instantaneously eradicate all of your anxiety. And you won't have anxiety attacks anymore. It will eradicate all of your depression and take that all away. Now, I know some of you who are watching this, you're thinking, I just don't know if that's possible. But what if I'm right? What if I'm right? Isn't it worth taking a chance? Now, I want to do in this episode a little bit of a review. If you haven't been watching all of the episodes, go back and watch them. But let me give you an idea of what I've presented so far. I've talked about the fact that the reason this life is so difficult is the fact that you and I were not created or designed to live in this world. I suggested the possibility that, after all, this world is second choice. The world we were designed and crafted and created and fashioned and formed by God was for that other world, not this one. And as a result, you and I were not designed to live in a world where we were going to experience depression. In that first world, remember me talking about you were never going to have to work for a living. Not what we would consider work. You were never going to have to struggle to make the payments on the bills and wondering if you're going to have enough money to make the rent and the mortgage payment. That was never going to happen. You were never going to ever have fear of being laid off or fired from a job. Your children were never going to struggle to find themselves, the need to do something outrageous, because they would have never felt more needed and wanted and special, and that their life had purpose and value. And then I ended that by talking about the fact we would have never seen a homeless person. No, not while we were all home under God's care. And then I faced the reality. I know, we don't live in that world. Now, here's the truth. We were designed for that world. And in that world, you were never going to experience any sort of emotional situation that could cause you to feel depressed or angry or anxious or fearful or ever have any phobias. None of those painful emotions. You were never going to feel lonely. You were never going to feel rejected. That was never going to take place in that world. Now, think about this. If God was designing us for a world where there was no possibility you were ever going to experience those sort of painful situations, then why would he have created a natural, innate design inside of us so that we had a natural defense against anything that could cause any level of emotional pain in our lives, that could break our hearts? And the truth is, he didn't. He didn't. So we now live in a world that we are undesigned for, unprepared. We are in a dangerous situation every day here. So what's the answer to that? And I said, the reality is, if we take a look at who God really is, who God's personality, if you could say, we're told within Scripture that God is love. And we're told in 2 Timothy 2:13 that God remains faithful because he cannot deny who he is. In other words, the attributes that make up God are not just choices he makes. He doesn't choose to love you. He has an attribute of love that's a part of the DNA, the spiritual DNA, if you'll allow me to say that, that causes him to be incapable of not loving. He has the attributes of love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and gentleness and faithfulness and self-control and righteousness are all present within him. And now we're told, what is our redemption? We're given a ministry of reconciliation to tell other people about this. What is it? That's the miraculous thing about Christianity. Why would someone want to become a part of this relationship with God? Because we're the only world religion that believes that God comes inside of us and us in him. And now, come on, put the pieces of the puzzle together. Why is that so phenomenal? You get it. You get it. God has all the attributes that we need to bring healing within our own lives. And when he comes inside of us, brings every attribute that makes God, God. And yes, hear them again. Love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and gentleness and faithfulness and self-control and righteousness. He brings all of those in, and they're so powerful. We're told within Scripture they eradicate the broken human condition. Remember, it says that the perfect love of God casts out, does away with all fear. All insecurities, all anxiety is gone because of the love of God. And the peace of God that we're told it passes all understanding. There's no rhyme or reason why you would feel peace of God in some situations. But it says you will when God comes in. In fact, it says it will keep your heart and your mind. It'll keep your heart and your mind. Now, that's the promise of God. But we've got to know, how does that take place? And what I'm wanting you as Christians, if you're a Christian and you're listening, or if you're not a Christian, what I'm wanting you to grab a hold of, if that sort of transformation is not taking place within the Christian community, then come on. Let's admit the truth. We've been missing something. Did you hear me? We've been missing something. It is impossible for God to come inside of a human being and transformation not take place. absolutely impossible. That's insane to think that something miraculous and not some sort of process that you go along, as life goes along, you become more patient, more kind, more loving, and you have to work on it from week to week. And mind you, you're never going to quite get there, but you'll be a little bit better. And you'll remind yourself every day, what would Jesus do? That's not it. That's not the life we're called to. We're called to draw near to God, to find God. And that God, when he finds us, when he's looking for a person who has a heart after him, and when he does, he will attach himself to that person, come inside of them, so that his strength, what does it say in 2 Chronicles, will become our strength. We'll be changed. We'll be radically transformed. Now, that's the relationship that I'm trying to take you toward, trying to cause you to just for a moment to believe and to think, is that possible? Could that be possible? I'm trying to get you to that point. I know for me, my major's theology. I've got a lot of knowledge about theology. Pretty good amount with Scripture. But I know for sure, if it were not for the tangible encounter with God, this intimacy with God, then I would probably be an atheist today. I'd walk away from it. To just have knowledge about God, I don't know about you, it's never been enough for me. Never been enough. I cannot fathom that if God exists, he would leave us alone in this world we're not prepared for. Come on, come on. Do you really believe the God who loves you unconditionally would do such a thing? Now, here's part of the difficulty that I wanted you to catch, I think, with what I shared in the last podcast. One of the problems with this, having this intimacy, this interaction between us, God coming in us and him, is 2 Chronicles 16:9 says, God says, if you seek me, you'll find me if you seek for me with all your heart. And we don't tend to do that. We go and take things that we believe will make us happy to God, situations that are not taking place, people are not loving us, people are being unkind to us, and we're praying, ask God to change those people, change those situations, provide more money so that we're happier here. And because God has been so distant in the Christian life, within the Christian community worldwide, what we've done now is settled upon what I call God substitutes to make us happy. It's like we're saying to God, I don't know how to connect with you so that this inner depth of loneliness and depression and anxiety actually goes away. But I notice that some of these other things have the ability to temporarily make me happy and take my depression away. Will you fix those things and give me those things? So we begin to put our hope and our trust in God substitutes. And in our relationship with God, in our prayer life, God now becomes the provider of our God substitutes. Did you hear me? The provider of our God substitutes. What I'm asking you to do is turn loose of all of that. Turn loose of all of that. And to just seek God. Go spend time talking with God. Tell him, I don't want all of this other stuff. I'm tired of this. It's never made me happy. It's never given me peace. I just want you. I don't care about anything else. I just want you. Seek him with all your heart. Realize how desperate we are apart from him. Now, one of the greatest problems that makes this life even more difficult, it's not that we were just not designed to be here. And as a result, we have no natural defense against situations that could cause us to get emotionally wounded and hurt and our hearts broken and always remain lonely and depressed and anxious. If that were not enough, on top of it all, we find out that there's a part of who we are, our heart, that is, according to Scripture, is hidden from us. It says no person knows the heart except for the Lord. Who can know the heart but the Lord? And we're told about this hidden place of thinking. And I think, I could be wrong about this, but I think it's like our subconscious. It's not this thing here. It's our subconscious. It is that inner, deeper center of your thoughts that you're out of touch with. That's the heart. And it says about that part is that part of who we are is deceitful, desperately wicked, beyond cure. Because, why is that? Because of the fact no one is in touch with it. If you have no idea, if you go for counseling, what a counselor does is get you talking. They shut up and they get you talking. I'd never make a good counselor. They get you talking. Scripture says, out of the mouth proceed the things of the heart. And as you talk about your problem, there's an aha moment because that inner thought, the depths of it, finally comes out. And so then you can deal with that situation. But the problem is you've got thousands of those problems inside, hundreds upon hundreds that have built up. Woundedness, that probably going to a psychiatrist 24/7, you're never going to get all of it worked out. So we just learn to live in depression. Now, how do we deal with that? Well, here's the thought. I talked about in one of the episodes that God is reluctant to control. He'll not step into an area of your life that you don't open the door for. And what I mean by stepping into an area of your life, it's not where you say, God, here's what I want. I want this better job and I want more money. That's not you asking God to step into that life and that area of your life and take control. That's you telling God what you want him to do. Do you see it? Having God take control is God here is telling God, I'd like this better job and more money, but I'm going to put that into your care. You take care of that, however you want to, Father. I want you to cause my mind and my heart. And I know right now there's some part of you that's saying, I can't do that. I don't know if I can do that. Yeah, that's your heart. That's your heart. So the difficulty of life is you are in a world you're undesigned for. And as a result, you're vulnerable all the time emotionally, getting wounded again and again and again. And on top of it, your heart is warring against your mind. And I talked about that in one of the podcasts. I think it was the heart, the last one, the center of who you are. You remember I talked about that in the Hebrew, the mind is that part of who we are, that in the Hebrew word, if you get down to the root of it, it says it's made up of your thoughts, your emotions, and a rational will, which means they're a logical reasoning. You face a problem and analytically you take it apart and come to a decision. But when it defines the heart, remember the heart's hidden from you. And it describes the root of it, says it's made up of your thoughts and your emotions and a will. Remember, it leaves out the word rational because that analytical, logical thinking process never goes on in your heart. Now, and I said, how does it decide then what's right or wrong? It makes its decisions by what makes it feel good, What makes it feel bad? If something makes it feel good, that's a right thing. If something makes it feel bad, that's a wrong thing. Now, that sounds somewhat reasonable, but think about it. Sins, and I use the example of immorality. Immorality is, Scripture says it has a pleasure for a season. In other words, it's fun. We wouldn't be pulled toward immorality. And I'm using that just as an example if it wasn't fun. We wouldn't overeat if it wasn't fun. We wouldn't be pulled toward the escape that drugs and alcohol produce if that escape wasn't pleasurable. Well, the heart knows that, and so it thinks those are good things. So when you become a Christian, there's this diabolical fight going on between your mind, who now believes and wants to follow God, and your heart is thinking some of those things are crazy to do. You know, don't give up immorality. It feels so good. You feel loved. You feel wanted. You feel special in that immoral act. And so it wars against the heart and the mind. And I talked about the fact that eventually the heart usually wears out the mind, and we give in to whatever that sin is. Now, what's the answer for all of it? Once again, the tangible relationship with God. Until those painful emotions are gone from your mind and your heart, the battle will never end. Did you hear me? And what I want to do is I found what opens that door, and I'm trying with everything within me to take you there. In the next weeks, I'm going to talk about the parts of the heart. What's the heart like? What are those parts? And how can you open the door? How can you give God control in those areas so that he transforms the heart as well as the mind? Don't give up. I know some of you are so emotionally exhausted. I get that. Apart from him, all of us end up that way. But don't forget, you're never alone. You're never without purpose or value. You're never unloved. You're who you are because of the artist who put you together. Now come on and go with me, and let's go find a tangible God who will heal every broken part of who you are and give you a life you could have never dreamed possible. You're worth so much to me. You're worth so much. Hey viewers and listeners, this is Rod Pruitt. Want to help someone experience a tangible encounter with God? Then simply click on the like and subscribe buttons below. Yet more important, take the time and click on the share button to make sure your friends know about this intimate God relationship. That's all you have to do. Thanks for caring.